This is the PS Vita, Sony's failed handheld console whose literal name means life, but the only life this console ever had was a short-lived one.
Vita means life.
But I absolutely love this console and I think you'll love it too. So let's check it out. There is no doubt that Sony has absolutely made some of the best consoles to have ever existed. Consoles like the PS2, which to this day still holds the place as the best selling console of all time. But not every Sony console can be a huge success. Following the massive success of the PSP and the ongoing handheld war between Nintendo and Sony, in December of 2011, Sony decided to release their new addition to their lineup of consoles, the PS Vita. This was Sony's response to the Nintendo 3DS, which had been released that same year back in February. Now, specs-wise, the PS Vita was a powerhouse. The PS Vita had some nice exclusives from awesome game franchises like Uncharted, Killzone, and Assassin's Creed. At first glance, the PS Vita seemed to have a very bright future ahead of itself. Unfortunately, sales started plummeting rather quickly for the PS Vita, and the console started to underperform in the forecasted sales Sony had for the console for even its first initial month, eventually leading Sony to kind of lower its support for the PS Vita, which led to them not making any more exclusives really just for the Vita. And if Sony isn't focusing on making games for the console, why should third parties even bother? So shortly after, third-party support really started to dwindle and no games are really coming out for this console, to be honest. Now, the failure of the console can just be pinned on one thing. In this case, it was a combination of a lot of factors that really led to the downfall of the Vita. A lackluster game library, super expensive proprietary memory cards, and even the cost of the system. To top it all off, the PS Vita had some super poor advertising campaigns. An obvious big reason why the Vita failed was the release of the PS4. The PS4 came out 2 years after the Vita had been released, and let's be honest, the PS4 was a huge success. We can see it, Sony saw that for sure. Sony decided to pivot its game developers and resources away from the Vita and just focus it solely on their new golden boy, which was the PS4. And at that point, it became clear as day that Sony had kind of just abandoned the Vita. Within its 8-year lifespan, the PS Vita is estimated to have only sold 16 million units. Now, this is just an estimate because Sony won't reveal the real numbers. I think they're kind of embarrassed, to be honest. Because when you compare it to its predecessor, the PSP, that sold 80 million. And 80 million versus 16? I'm not a size queen, but that's a big size difference. So on March 19 of 2019, Sony officially discontinued the PS Vita.
Vita means life.
But luckily for Sony, I never owned a PS Vita, and last May, I decided to actually pick one up for myself. I wanted to see why people kind of just talked trash on this console and why it even failed. So yeah, I was curious. Within the first hour of actually playing games on it, I kind of fell in love. Just from how premium the console itself felt and even the lackluster game library, everything about this is a goldmine, guys. Now, I managed to get myself the Vita 1000 model, which is actually the best version. It's a little bit chunkier, but it does have an OLED screen. Remember how bad everyone was losing their minds when we found out that Nintendo was putting an OLED on the Switch?
Yeah, what Sony did it like 6 years ago, and I think they were kind of the first ones to do it. Don't quote me, but it just sounds cooler if I say it that way, so just believe me.
I was just stunned to see how beautiful these games looked and how awesome and smooth these games ran on this system. I truly felt like an idiot for not buying this console when it first released. Now, let's talk about the biggest elephant in the room, the games available for the Vita. If consoles don't sell games, but games sell consoles, you know what I mean? Well, let me tell you, there is a mountain load of games for the Vita. Anything from action RPGs, indie side-scrollers, and even first-person shooters. It seems like the Vita truly has something for everyone on its game library. Now, if you're into JRPGs or other weeb-oriented type of games, I think you're in luck because this game library definitely seems to favor you. Seriously, it feels like 70% of the games on the Vita library were made for people who want to be called Oni-chan at least one point in their life.
Don't worry about it, I'm one of you guys, but just don't tell anyone. I'm trying to seem normal. Okay, cool, bye.
Now, one of the real reasons why I absolutely fell in love with the PS Vita is because you are also able to tap into and play literally almost all of the PSP game library. That's huge. But since a console doesn't have a UMD drive, you are only really restricted to whatever games were released digitally for the PSP. Now, this allows you to play super awesome game franchises like the original God of War games and one of my personal favorites, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. But yeah, let me know down in the comment section down below, what are some of your favorite PSP games that you would like to recommend to anyone? Also, if you haven't owned a PSP, like what are some games you've always wanted to try out that are stuck on that system? Feel free to drop some comments down below, guys. Now, the only real bummer about the game situation for the Vita itself is that it's kind of hard to get your hands on some of these games. Obviously, since they're discontinued, you're gonna have to be doing some game hunting. Now, that isn't too terribly hard to do, but some of these games, since there's not a lot of them, they are kind of going up in price by quite some bit. Also, since Sony made it damn near impossible to buy games digitally through the Vita store, and even if you wanted to get PSP games, you can't do that. Sony closed down the PSP store section of the Vita store, so you can't even get your hands on those games. So if Sony doesn't want you to give them money for their game, and you're not into paying for crazy marked up games, what can you do? Homebrew, homebrew, homebrew. Now, this opens a whole new can of worms, but I truly believe that the homebrew scene is what really makes the PS Vita one of the best consoles of all time, in my opinion. Now, modding your Vita has never been easier than before. The world of homebrewing really seems like a rabbit hole of all the deep, dark possibilities that you can do with it. The main thing I want to focus on is that homebrewing will allow you to play all those PS Vita and PSP games that you want to play. The best part is, it's kind of free. And one of the things that you should definitely look into once you have homebrewed your Vita is Adrenaline. This basically turns your PS Vita into a full-on PSP, allowing you to play almost all the PSP games. The best part is that once you homebrew your PS Vita, you don't even need your PC anymore to download and play any game. All you need is this beautiful app, PKGJ. You can also look into how to get that. It's fairly easy. Now, if you are going to use this app, guys, I really recommend for you to only download the games that you already own physically or digitally. But hey, at the end of the day, I ain't your dad, and I'm not gonna tell you that you can't dress up as a pirate on any other day than isn't Halloween, so have at it, I guess. Now, one of the other things that homebrewing your Vita can allow you to do is emulation. Now, I know emulation is definitely a very big thing right now, and I haven't really personally done it on my Vita, since anything I would want to emulate, I already own those systems, so I haven't found the need to do it. But from what I've seen is that you can emulate pretty good a lot of the systems leading up to the PlayStation 1. One of the things to definitely keep an eye out for are definitely game ports. Like, for example, you can even play San Andreas on the PS Vita, you can play Max Payne, you can play even Dead Space. That's actually super cool. And they always seem to be working on different ports, bringing them over to the Vita itself. It seems to me that in these past years, the popularity of retro handheld consoles has definitely gone up, therefore kind of driving the prices of a lot of these things to be, well, more expensive. But if you kind of keep your eyes open, you can definitely find a decently priced PS Vita. The saddest part about Sony abandoning ship on the PS Vita is that I feel that we never really saw the true capabilities of the console itself until the console was brought back from the grave by the community itself. And that, to me, that's kind of beautiful. They were the ones who truly breathed life back into the PS Vita, allowing us to have the whole Vita and PSP gaming library at our fingertips, plus other super cool, awesome things that you can do on your Vita. Now, even if you're not interested in modding your PS Vita, I still believe this is a super cool piece of gaming tech to own. There are truly some amazing games out there that make up the Vita library, so I'm pretty sure if you manage to get your hands on one of those, it will definitely make it worth your time. Now, please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, please make sure to drop a comment down below. I am very interested to hear if you've ever owned a PS Vita, what games you played on there, and what were some of the hidden gems that you found? Or if you've never owned a Vita, I'm interested to hear if this video even just piqued some interest into your life. So make sure to drop some comments down below, guys. Again, thank you for checking out today's video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.